sea blue, greasy blue, viewed afterward softly. When my country takes a place among nations of the earth, no one behind, she's past, then and not till then, tramp, yang, good opportunity coming, yang, God, I'm sure it's perfect. Yes, let my epitaph be yang, written, I have done. When James Joyce met his cousin Patsy Murray in London in 1931, when she was working as a nurse, he asked about the fate of that signed first edition of Ulysses that he'd sent back home to her mother, his favourite Aunt Josephine. And she somewhat shamefacedly admitted that her mother had locked her up in the meat safe because, as she said, Ulysses was not fit to read. Joyce gave, I think, the definitive answer to all such prim critics when he said merely, if Ulysses is not fit to read, then life is not fit to live. And this was the answer he gave also to the critics of Dubliners. To return to that, what was all the problem about this early book of Joyce? Well, first of all, there was the language, and one cannot understand. After all, Mr. Faulkner was the printer, perhaps a member of the graphic trade union and print unions, maybe even an employer of that wonderfully virtuous and clean-mouthed man, Mr. Rupert Murdoch, the son. So one can understand the delicacy of his feelings, particularly when confronted with fifth language like the word bloody, which was repeated throughout the book and found particularly offensive when it occurred in close conjunction to a less than reference to the then lately departed Queen Victoria, when one of the characters expresses compassion for her son, Prince Edward, after his bloody old bitch of a mother, sitting on the throne like a broody hen for 60 years and keeping him off. Well, that was bad enough. And then there was the subject matter of the stories found to be noisome. There was also the shape of the story. I mean, people expected something in a story. They expected a certain shape. Now, I was very, very lucky. Many years ago, over 40 years ago, the late Michael O'Donovan came to teach in Trinity. Much better known under his nom de plume as a short story writer, Frank O'Connor. And Frank O'Connor had the most marvelous way of cutting through academic capture and getting to the meat of the situation. He was talking to us about the shape of a short story, and instead of using all kinds of academic terms, he told us about how he had visited, as a boy, a fun fair in Cork with his mother. And the star attraction was a strong man who came out dressed in a leotard, and he exhibited to the crowd a bar of iron. And then, with his muscles bulging his biceps, he brought all his strength to bear on it, and he turned it into the shape of a horseshoe. People grasped in admiration. And then, once more, bringing his great strength to bear, and with beads of perspiration rippling down his forehead, he brought it all the way back up again, until it was exactly the same bar we'd seen in the beginning. But, as O'Connor pointed out, it wasn't the same bar, it could never be, because it had been used by the strong man to illustrate the miracle of human strength. And that, he said, was what should happen in the short story. We should look back over its events with eyes that have been subtly changed by the act of reading. And that is a wonderful description because it holds true of all short stories. In Joyce's day, people might have been adventurous, read Chekhov, little Maupassant, that kind of thing. And you know the Maupassant stories, classic one, diamond necklace. Young couple, borrow diamond necklace, it gets lost, they ruin themselves replacing it, and then it all turns out, guess what? That necklace, madame, I thought you realized it was only paste. Bang! Smack the kisser. End of the story. Just like Sunday afternoon, when if we put to one side our intellectual snobberishness, we admit we all watch American cartoons on the television, and at the end, a little animal comes flying out of the flag that says, "That's all, folks," and you achieve what my American colleagues call a satisfying sense of closure. No in the short story is a full stop. What does Joyce do with his short story? Look at the first one, The Sisters. you hear the querulous voice of an old woman saying,
So then, of course, when they seen that, they realised something had gone wrong with them. Dot, dot, dot.
there isn't even the person of a bloody full stop. We're at the end of the story. It's gone, it's evaporated off the page. But Joyce is doing something wonderfully experimental and new. He's forcing us, the reader, to collaborate with him in the completion of the story. And what stories there are, if you get behind the technical difficulties, the distaste for the subject matter, the curious language and all the rest of it, you find universal little episodes from human life. Just to give you one. The end of the story called Play. Isn't it true? Whatever we're at a family occasion, be it birthday, bar mitzvah, Eid al-Fitr, Christmas, Eid, or whatever you're having yourself, there's always some bloody old relation. They're just enough when it's time to shovel, sit down, and go home. Until eventually someone has the good sense to come to him or her and say, will you have another glass of sherry before you go home? The end of Clay, little Maria the laundress, who has inflicted herself on her brother Joe and his family, has given her a marching orders. At last the children grew tired and sleepy. And Joe asked Maria, would she not sing some little song before she went home? One of the old songs. Mrs. Donnelly said, do please, Maria. And so Maria had to get up and stand beside the piano. Then Mrs. Donnelly bade the children be quiet and listen to Mariah's song. Then she played the introduction and said, now Mariah. So Mariah began to sing in a tiny, quavering voice. She sang, I dreamt that I dwelt in marble halls. But when she came to the second verse, she sang again. I dreamt that I dwelt in marble halls, with muscles and souls of my soul. And oh, simple within those walls, that I will go and not run. I have reached now. The predictable opening paragraph of the Victorian novel, I'm sure you know it. It was a dull November evening in the year 1890 blank. I lit myself a good Havana cigar and lay back reclining into the comfortable depths of my Morocco leather armchair, inhaling the fragrant fumes of the tobacco and listening the while to the sound of the wheels of the hansom cab they rattled away across the cobblestones into the night. And you knew you were going to be treated as an adult. Within 6 pages, you'd have the external appearance of our estates, bank accounts, and appearance of all the main principal characters in all. How does Mr. James Joyce open his novel? Once upon a time, and a very good time it was too, there was a moo cow coming down along the road. And this moo cow that was coming down along the road met a nice little boy named Baby Doo. Well, I asked her, what kind of bloody way is that to treat grown-ups? A mishmash of nonsense like cows and nursery rhymes? Joyce again was doing doing something wonderfully modern. He was eliding with one stroke of the pen the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient narrative voice. Now, isn't that a good old jawbreaker? I shoved that in so that you'd realise that, yes, indeed, I did once teach English at Trinity. But I can explain it in a much more accessible, perhaps even vulgar way, because I'm a man of very vulgar habits.